Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Indian atrocities in Kashmir continue, as do the violations on line of control. Sadly, as a country, always trying to further the Kashmiri cause, consistently trying to give our Kashmiri brethren a voice in the international community, we haven't been able to do much. And let's make another attempt to ask ourselves why. Also, we will also be talking about Khwaja Asif's speech in his opening remarks when he spoke at the Institute of Peace, United States Institute of Peace. He talked about our sacrifices as a nation, our sacrifices against terrorism, and yet the mantra of do more continues. Let's talk about all of that. He also spoke about regional peace, our attempts to try and stabilize the region, what we've been able to do, American stance of trying to do more in the face of a country like Afghanistan, India. Let's talk about all of that today. I have with me Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab, who's an international relations expert. Thank you for joining us today. Jan Atakzai Saab, leader PMLN. Thank you for being with us. And Abdullah Gilani Saab, who's a Kashmiri leader. Thank you for giving us your time. Zafar Saab, to start off with you, like I said, this is not a new, sadly, this is not a new topic for us. We do keep discussing it. It's very close to our heart. The Kashmiri cause is something that Pakistan has always tried to further. We haven't been able to do much, sadly. In your opinion, just in 2-3 lines, why do you think that? What's the crux of it all?
I think that since 1948, Pakistan is doing much. I think it's a big achievement of Pakistan that we are maintaining and sustaining this issue at the international forums.
Right.
We are not permitting anyone to derail this issue, or you can say end the legality of this issue.
Right.
It's a legal stake. Pakistan is a stakeholder.
Right.
Unfortunately, when we look at the international community,
right,
international community is very much dumped over it. They are not buying, because in the international relations, or you say, they are looking India's political, military and economic significance, and
right,
they are ignoring the sacrifices of the Kashmiri people. We are supporting Kashmir diplomatically, politically, and diplomatically, or in this media when we debate, we try to highlight the Kashmiri cause.
right.
It's easier for us. That's why we are. But the Kashmiris are sustaining their movement, their cause for freedom movement. They are doing they are paying the blood through the sacrifices. And
right,
it's an indigenous movement. If you see, since 1988,
right,
there's no break in it. And every day we hear the different tactics which have been employed by the law enforcement, Indian law enforcement agencies, armed forces, political, to terrorize the Kashmiris, but they are not. So I can say that this Kashmir cause is very much fleshy, it's very much there, it's very much fresh because of the Kashmiris' own blood.
Right. And according to you, Pakistan has played a part in that. It hasn't.
Yes, well, no, there are two reasons, first of all. Yes, we are playing our part, and we have to play a part. It's the responsibility of the Pakistan to play a part, because we are a legal stakeholder of this issue. In 1948,
right,
when India went to the United Nations, we didn't go.
right,
We accepted United Nations decision, plebiscite, and in that decision, Pakistan became a legal stakeholder. So it's the responsibility of Pakistan, and secondly, it's unfinished agenda.
right,
We have to go.
right,
And I am very much convinced that if we are not, or if we try to set aside this thing, any government, any institution of Pakistan, people of Pakistan are not doing it.
right. Let me come back. Let's talk more about that. Let me go to Jan Saab. Jan Saab, certainly we can't discount the government's efforts. And, the PM speech in the UNGA, always the Kashmir is our primary focus. That's what we start with when we talk about, when we make the speech, whenever the Prime Minister makes the speech, sending envoys, all of that. But honestly, do you think we've been consistent? I mean, certainly we have made efforts and we do try and further the Kashmiri cause. But there has not always been the kind of consistency. Wouldn't you say that perhaps this kind of this cause warrants?
Well, I mean, there is always room for improvement as to how you conduct your diplomacy on Kashmir issue. As a government, we are very much mindful of the fact. We are also mindful of the fact that there are many ways how to improve our communication strategy, engaging the world. But the fundamentals are very much clear. It is very much at the heart of Pakistan's foreign policy that we stand by the Kashmiri people. For this purpose, we have engaged the international community, the international forums. We have got help wherever it is possible for the, to raise the concerns and voices and atrocities that the Kashmiri people facing over the last decades. Now, yes, sometimes the campaign has seen a surge, sometimes it is like less than a surge. Of course, given our intensity, potential, and our limitations and our resources, of course. But I think there is a trend throughout our foreign policy that Pakistan has stood by the Kashmiris through thick and thin by trying its best to internationalize the issue, to get, grab the attention of the world community. Having said that, yes, no nation which has any dispute with another, country or, territory or, have a claim over a certain issue has, this time frame. If you have seen, if you have analyzed, today there are many countries who have got issues running for more than 150 years. I mean, the China-Russian relations, if you go through the history, they had some dispute over Ireland that was there for the last 200 plus years, and then they came to a resolution. The Cyprus issue is very old, it's still unresolved. The British and also the Latin American
country. So you're saying relatively, Kashmir is not that.
So I think it has never been in the back burner of Pakistan's foreign policy effort. Yes, as I said.
But it does go on the back burner now and then, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I won't say the back burner, but I would say that sometime we launch, a very robust effort to highlight it, given our resources, our, pace of diplomatic effort. But I don't think that, Pakistan has simply shrinked its responsibility of, not highlighting this important issue to the world fora.
Abdullah Saab's opinion on that. Abdullah Saab, as a Kashmiri leader, as the government's position and Pakistan maintains that short of employing nuclear arsenals, we have done, we have tried our best to give the Kashmiri cause their voice. Do you agree with that? I mean, what kind of a criticism would you have on, our tactics? Certainly, sending envoys was a huge step of the government, but that was also criticized for a variety of reasons. How do you see that?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. First of all, I would appreciate you the way you put the straightforward questions to my two colleagues here. And you mentioned very nicely, and that is the fact that where we are lacking is the consistency on our policy on Kashmir. That is the big problem which we are facing here, because there is no doubt that Pakistan has been playing its due role, but we lack the consistency. We have seen ex-Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif last year's speech in the United Nations. Very nicely, very strongly he has represented the Kashmir there, but after that we did not see any follow-up. Now we have seen Prime Minister Khaqan Abbasi. He has taken a bold stand over the Kashmir. He has mentioned in his speech, I think it was 2,500 words were the total, and 501 word was dedicated for the Kashmir issue.
Right.
He highlighted very nicely, and he has told the story of the Kashmiris to the people, which was in fact need of the hour, because the Indians were definitely watching over their television screens the speech of the Pakistani Prime Minister, and it was need of the hour to say, to convey the message of message of the sacrifice, message of the victimization of the people of Kashmir to the Indian people, that this is happening in Kashmir, this is what your soldiers are doing, so-called soldiers, the occupational forces, they are doing there. But again, let me say it, I feel sorry for one thing, that there is no follow-up. If there would have been a strong follow-up, the way you take up the issue there, if the follow-up would have been the same, there might have been chances that we would have get the responses from the international community.
Right. Jansa, why do you think that there is, you know, once we go in with the fervor, we go in with our full force, and then, you know, like Gilani Sahab is saying, there's no follow-up. Do you think that has something to do with our follow-up team? As you know, certainly we have a Minister for Foreign Affairs now, but for a long time that wasn't true. You know, do you think that we have the kind, it is about the fact that we have needed the kind of team to do, you know, the necessary follow-up, even when, you know, the Premier of the country goes in and, you know, dedicates a whole speech to Kashmiris, there still needs to be a follow-up at the back, like Gilani Sahab is saying.
Well, from that end, of course, we can have a, you know, some sort of effective strategy as to how go about, particularly when you want to engage different capitals. But remember, the world is evolving. It's not a, you know, place that where Pakistan has a control of all the cards. It's a geopolitical world where there are no free lunches at the moment. The Indian market attraction particularly is something that attracts, you know, the Western community led by the US. They are not concerned about the human rights. They are not concerned about the democracy. They are not concerned about any, you know, soft power issues. They have this duplicity. They want to continue with India. If you visit any capital in the Western world, you cannot talk about the Indian atrocities because they have got a, you know, the contract of arms sale going on. They want to sell their F-16. You know, the French aircraft deal want to go through, and they would simply sell, you know, tell you we will not receive any delegation highlighting the Kashmir issue in our parliament or interact with our, you know, policymakers. You know, that is my own personal observation. I've been to several capitals to highlight the Kashmir issue. You know, the Indian lobby and the market is very much kind of has, by implication, blocked out efforts to highlight.
In your opinion, do you think that we have a sufficiently competent team to do the necessary follow-up?
There, you know, there are structural issues. The structural issues, do we have a permanent lobbying system? Yes, but it's not as effective as our opponents have it. For example, if you start with the US, there are 4 or 5 organized, you know, lobbying against Pakistani interests. I mean, of course, the Indian lobby, the proliferation lobby, the Afghanistan lobby, the Jewish lobby, and the diaspora, the Indian diaspora, 3.5 million, who are very much effective in the US administration. They are there. Now, our diaspora is very much smaller in numbers, and they have got a less than, you know, the more kind of green collar jobs. They don't have that much, you know, ingress into the policy making institutions of the United States of America, from Silicon Valley to State Department and White House. The same case, you know, with other part of the world. For example, in UK, a very strong Indian community, you know, in the parliament, and at the local council level, they are so, you know, now if you just, you know, follow the news, the Indian, you know, the leader, the Sonia Gandhi's son just been to the US to kind of, you know, get the support of the Indian, you know, this diaspora, because now it is very important in terms of Indian investment, lobbying, political, you know, their support and contribution back home in India. So that is one challenge for us, and we have to admit it. Second, of course, our resources, another constraint that we have it. Third is Pakistan, for the first time, we are kind of moving more towards Asia pivot than our, you know, kind of relations with the US that we had in the past. Now it's more transactional.
Right, let's talk about, I want to talk more about our changing relationship with the US also, and if it's actually changing. But let me go on to Zafar Sahab. Right, you know, India, of course, is very central to any debate or any, you know, any comment on Kashmir, certainly. And our relationship with, volatile relationship with India is certainly a point. But when we talk about trade, India and China are also, you know, not exactly best friends, but they manage to do trade with each other. Why is it so different for Pakistan and India, in your opinion?
I think that in the case of China and India, if you see that they have a border dispute, but there is no blood and flesh in it. So people are not involved in it. In the case of India and Pakistan, peoples are there. Indians' atrocities are there. Innocent Kashmiris, you can say, are facing the brutality. And Pakistan, as a you can say, as I said earlier, stakeholder cannot ignore these things.
Right.
So when we highlight, Indians start saying that, oh, this is one thing. Second, with India, we have a border which is a linear border. And in being a linear border, if you say unsettle this line of control and working boundary, there India always tried to, you can say, pressurize us. India has adopted a coercive aggressive diplomacy against Pakistan.
Right.
Whereas if you see in the case of China and India, China is a superior power or a bigger power.
Right.
In 1962, even China won the war, but they returned their prisoners with their weapons. So Chinese never adopted this coercive strategy towards India. So that's why Chinese are not projecting themselves as a, you can say, enemy of the India.
Right. And
they are engaging in the BRICS, they are engaging in many other, there is a more than 1 billion trade, and above all, there is Himalayas dividing them. If you see in the case of recently, in this Nepal, this small place where the Indians tried to create some kind of a problem for the Chinese, and Chinese reaction, India submitted. Right. So in our case, we are not submitting to the India. This is a reality. We are a nuclear weapon state. We are demanding in the region equality, sovereign equality. If we today agree with India, the way Indians, for the sake of their trade, submit to the Chinese or agree with the Chinese, then we have a trade with India. Second, both states are agriculture states. And if you see in the last 40 years, unfortunately, we have been in the war zone. And being in a war zone, our industry, we have a local industry, no foreign investment, no foreign engagement, and that's why we are not attractive. Yes, we are attractive for the Indians for a trade route to the Central Asia, but the problem is the Indian desires that truckers, we say, why not railway track? Because trucker can go anywhere. Right. They are not ready to come. So Indians, when they talk with Pakistan, they think that they are like they wanted to deal the way the Gujarat doctrine was for the rest of 5 states in South Asia.
Right.
So they wanted to deal Pakistan like the other South Asian states. Pakistan is not there. That is the reason the trade is not happening. And above all, in the case of Pakistan and India, finally I can on this issue, I say my understanding is Pakistan give priority to the Kashmiri cause rather than its economic prosperity.
The Kashmiri cause. So then, you know, if we talk about the United States, saying to us to do more, that mantra has, you know, now become quite, you know, clear and loud as far as the US is concerned. And we've seen a shift, a changing shift post-Trump, you know, administration. Why not do something about Kashmir then?
Look, it's very important. When you say we were the very close ally, we were 3 times frontline state of the Americans, but Americans didn't support us on the Kashmir. They only played a role of mediator, especially in during the Kargil or 2001, 2002, because they were thinking that it is not in their interest. Apart from that, Americans have no interest in the Kashmir. Second point is,
but they do want the region to be stable.
No, this is very important. You said this mantra of 2 more. You are very much correct. But here is one thing: since the last 5 years, we have been hearing, and I think that Pakistan is now became immune to this kind of a statement. And I fail to understand why my government is not responding categorically. We are still adopting apologetic, diplomatic. We have to be very clear. Americans are not going to give you anything. Right. In the last 17, 16 years, what they give us?
Exactly.
Nothing in reality.
Right.
We paid the bigger price. So we have to learn the realities. And we have to start looking that the trend in the international politics are systematically they are pushing you towards the Asian side rather than to the American side. Their time has changed. There was time we were against the Russians to move out of Afghanistan. Today we are welcoming them up to the Gwadar. So this means that things have changed. Now in this context, if we start expecting from the Americans that they can play any, you can say, effective role in the resolution of the Kashmir dispute, I think we are wrong. Americans want, or the great powers desires, this is a strategy. If you look on the strategic chessboard and in the real politics, they always desire that within the region there should be a conflict. Conflict between the regional actors. India is a big power. Pakistan is the 6th biggest state in the world. If there is a conflict between these 2 states, they remain engaged and tangled within the region. Their policies out of the region will be not shining, not effective. And for a great power, like America, which is a great power comes superpower, this conflict alive is very important. Why India, otherwise why India purchased trillions dollars weapons.
Right.
Now
Let's
they have
come to
billions
talk-
dollars weapons.
Let's talk about that in a bit. Let me take Jan Saab's comments on why is the government not being categorical as far as, why straight, answering the US. Why are we still being as diplomatic when clearly, we've talked about the fact what aid they've given us and, what it amounts to, and what we've lost in terms of the lives of our soldiers, the sacrifices that we've made. Why are we not being straight with the Americans? Why haven't we changed our tone?
Well, I think we are very much straight with the Americans in our conversation. For the first time, Pakistan is realizing now the message is coming out from Islamabad. Khwaja Asif is in Washington, and it's very clear that we are, fighting war on terror. We are winning, and we are not complaining. That is one message. The second message was of the optics. Khwaja Asif Saab, the foreign minister, went to Beijing, to Iran, Turkey, and met his counterpart, Russian counterpart in New York. And the optics was aimed at the US, sending out a message that Afghanistan is our concern first. Right. Second, there are no safe havens in Pakistan. Third, Pakistan has become a peaceful country. Shows us that shows us as a credible anti-terror partners. That message was very much clear. The third is we have told them in a categorical term that Pakistan does not need any aid. We need a respect for our sacrifices.
But have we told them when the US has said that India will be a partner in resolving the Afghanistan issue, resolving the conflict as far as they're concerned? Why have we not been very, very clear with the US
very much clear
about our, of course, Indian conspiracies against Pakistan vis-a-vis Afghanistan are no secret to the US.
Pakistan's National Security Forum, which is a forum for the civil military, political establishment, very much send out a message that India is not a net security provider, that they have a zero role in the security and the peace and stability of the region, including Afghanistan. Prime Minister Basi Saab, when he was in Washington, he said that India has a zero role to play in Afghanistan. We have categorically, time and again, repeated that India has nothing to do because India has undermined the region's stability by using Afghanistan, financing its way into Balochistan. That has been our message, and we have told different Trump officials that by demonizing Pakistan and glorifying India, this is a recipe for a sure failure of the US policy in Afghanistan.
Trump has said that Pakistan has a lot to gain by working with the US. Pakistan actually has not gained much working with the US.
We have said that we will gain if we work together. It's not a one-way street. I mean, if the United States is a part of the problem, then of course Pakistan cannot do much. In Afghanistan, for the last 8 years, the Obama administration has been part of the problem. They did not encourage reconciliation. They did not admit that there is no military or tactical solution to Afghanistan problem, and this is why we have this problem. And then by present in Afghanistan does not mean that it is only concern of the United States of America to have a peace and stability. It's the first concern is of the neighboring countries, particularly Pakistan, who has suffered and who has been suffering economically, politically, socially because of the instability in the region and the conflict that is going on in Afghanistan.
We have said, Jan Saab, before I go on to Gilani Saab, we have said that we can do without the aid that was meted out to Pakistan till now. Do you think that's true?
Now we don't need IMF as a last resort in terms of borrowing. Pakistan has managed very well its debt servicing liability over the last 4 years by increasing its revenue generation. More than 2,000 billion rupees we have added, as a tax collection. That has given us this fiscal, this space that we can service easily. The most important thing, our growth rate is very much respectable, above 5%. Then we have other lenders as well as a last resort if needed to sustain our current account deficit, our budget deficit. So I think in worst case scenario, Pakistan has multi options to rely upon.
Right. Gilani Saab, in your opinion, how do you see the future of the Kashmiri cause? Considering the fact that, we've been working, whatever we've done, like you said, perhaps we haven't been consistent, but Pakistan has rallied behind the Kashmiri cause. And, vis-a-vis our relationship with India, with Afghanistan, our regional conflicts certainly exist. How do you see that, and considering the volatile situation in Kashmir continues, we were earlier talking about braid chopping also. That is a recent phenomena in Kashmir. How do you see the situation in the future? Certainly, we are always hopeful, but in your opinion, what do you think will likely happen?
As Mr. Jaspal has mentioned, that Pakistan has played a role, and Pakistan has been successful in maintaining and sustaining the freedom struggle in Kashmir.
Right.
The most important thing is that the issue of Kashmir is for the right of self-determination.
Right.
And we have seen and we see every day that India is killing the right of self-determination there, because in the right of self-determination you have a vote to cast, either you go there or you come here.
Right.
So if India kills that right of self-determination, that is a cause of concern that we have to see. And when we say we are extending our diplomatic, moral and political support, I think the time has come that needs to be defined. What does the diplomatic and moral and political means? Because as you earlier mentioned in your comments that in a diplomatic move last year, Pakistan has sent some delegates, which was also criticized because of the lack of the knowledge about Kashmir. We have seen some of them parliamentarians. They had never even they had not even iota of the information about the Kashmir. One of the MNA, he was asked about the puppet chief minister, and he replied, yes, she is a Kashmiri and she must be asked what to do. And he had no idea about the puppet administration in Kashmir. This is the first thing. The second thing is Mr. Achakzai, he has mentioned about the diaspora, and he said that is a challenge for Pakistan. I don't see a challenge in that. I think that is a complete failure, because you see the Indian diaspora all over the world, when they talk about the matters related to their country, they are one. They are as Indians there. This is unfortunate that the Pakistani diaspora, if we see in the United Kingdom, we have almost more than 1 million people there, Kashmiri and Pakistanis both. But we have seen we have created the same kind of political atmosphere there which we have here in Pakistan. When when the Prime Minister, if any party's Prime Minister is here, he goes there. We have seen those people who are linked with that party, they come and celebrate the Prime Ministers coming there, and they talk about the issues related to that party, not as a national, as a Pakistani. That is a big problem. This third thing is, you talked about the bread chopping.
Right.
These are the tactics. I think these are the. I believe these are the diversionary tactics, and these are meant to divert the people's attention from the events and developments in Kashmir. And this is not the first time. India has launched this conspiracy in the early 90s in Kashmir, when the armed struggle against Indian occupation was at its peak, and there have been some mysterious incidents, mysterious attacks on the ordinary people in their homes and on the streets as well.
Right.
Finally, people were talking about the booths on those days. But finally, it came to know to everybody, to the world, because some Indian army men, they were caught red-handed, and they confessed that, yes, Indian army was behind all these attacks. And most recently, this bread chopping scene, we have to understand one thing, that this has originated from the Haryana state. India has tried it initially in the Haryana, and they checked to gauge the people's response, what would happen if we do this. And what happened there, they saw there was a confusion, there was a chaos, there was a fear among the people. And they started it at a larger scale in the Kashmir then. And we have seen recently in just a few days, dozens of incidents took place in Kashmir, and most specifically, these incidents were carried out in the southern part of Kashmir. That has been in the most recent months, the area has emerged as the new center for the resistance movement.
Right.
That's what we have to understand. This is actually meant to divert the attention of the people from the and most important thing is this: how could it be possible that such incidents can take place in an area which is the largest militarized zone in the world, and
Right.
every Indian, one soldier is on 5 peoples of Kashmir. So it means it is a fact that either it can only be carried out by the
Right,
Indian
right.
soldiers themselves or the people who are under their supervision or under their control. Nobody else can do that.
Right. Let me go on to Jaswal sir. Jaswal sir, right, you know, Kashmir is an issue that we have been, let's talk about regional peace, you know. Afghanistan, we're trying to build border checks. We are trying to do as much as we can. We've made an effort to you know, to have peaceful relationship with the Afghanis in how, why hasn't that, you know, the involvement of the US in the region certainly continues. You know, we've seen the Indian attempts to sabotage any peace attempts that we make. What do you think is likely to happen?
I think that Afghanistan since the very beginning has been exploited by the Indians for their sake. When the Americans or make us a non-NATO ally and they started operation against Afghanistan, naturally we were part of that. But the moment the Americans played a very dirty game in this context, I can say why I'm
Right.
using this dirty word, because I'm very much afraid, because if you see that after 2001, the funds which Americans gave to the Afghan government to send their national intelligence, their other law enforcement agencies or their trainers out of the Afghanistan, they were sent to the India. So it was a ploy. And Americans have a strategic partnership with India. They announced in the early, in the beginning of 21st century, and that the, you can say, setting started in 92.
Right.
Because if you recall that in 92, they signed the Malabar exercise agreement with India, and then this part they have said, and then in the 2011,
Right.
when India and Kabul announced the strategic partnership in October 2011, it was on the behest of the Americans. So Americans encouraged, Americans facilitated Indians' role in Afghanistan. So we have been encircled. This is number one. Number two, when you use the word regional peace, we have to not forget Pakistan is doing its best for a regional peace.
Right.
We said Afghan-led, Afghan-owned. We said quadrilateral dialogue. We said trilateral dialogue. Our chief was there all the way to Afghanistan.
But Jaspal sir, right, you know, we said a lot of, you know, we agreed to dialogue with everyone. We agreed to, we did make peace attempts, but we can't be hostile towards India and also towards the US. And also, you know, we have to maintain...
there is a problem. There is a problem. I little bit differ with it. We tried to engage India in composite dialogue. The composite dialogue was going very well. Who said to the Indians in the January, let's say just this year,
Right.
first Indian Prime Minister threatened us, then Indian Army Chief said Cold Star Doctrine. Yesterday, their Air Chief is saying, though it's a very naive, irresponsible, factless statements when he said the surgical strike, that we can conduct a surgical strike against the nuclear assets of Pakistan. Indian Air Force cannot even cross the border because by the technology or by Pakistan has a resistance force.
Right.
But still, when they make these kind of threatening statement, how we can say that there would be a peace? So a bigger neighbor who has a different mindset to encircle Pakistan, to establish his regional hegemony,
Right.
that state is responsible for, you can say, conflict in the region, not Pakistan alone. Even when we started composite dialogue, we said, okay, we have a Kashmir issue, but at the same time we have 7 other issues. Let's start each issue. We were nearer to the solution of the Siachen and Sar Creek. Indians went out of the dialogue. So it's the Indian, we cannot. And Pakistan is doing, but you have to understand.
So no one wants to play ball with us,
Huh?
is that what you're saying? No one wants to play ball with us, whether it's the US, whether it's India.
US
Afghanistan is of course hostile, you know, what kind of...
No, this is a natural, you are a big sage, you are not accepting the others' dictates. Afghanistan is hostile, but majority of the Afghans are not hostile towards Pakistan. If the Karzai government, this present Ghani government is hostile, it means that entire Afghanistan is hostile. No, Ghani government is a unity government without unity within the Kabul. This is this reality. Or a few bases of the Americans. Then what the Americans have a role when their defense secretary who was just landing there and there were attack on the airport. So I think simply saying that if the Kabul is annoyed or disturbed with us, naturally they have some problem. But with India, we have a genuine conflict, unsettled border. With Afghanistan, we have unsettled border. We desire, and Americans or nobody is playing a
And
role.
America is not being sympathetic.
No, not at all.
Right,
Not
right.
at all.
Jan Sahab, what is the future? What are our plans vis-a-vis, our foreign policy as far as America is concerned, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, as far as India is concerned? Are there likely to be changes in the foreign policy? Is it likely to be more active? How do you see it?
Well, first, Pakistan's foreign policy clout would enhance very much when our national power increases in terms of economic growth, national cohesion.
But Jan Sahab, to be fair, I mean, economically, we keep harping about the economics of Pakistan. We keep telling ourselves that, look, India is an economic, which is also true. And I think Jaspal Sahab can agree with me there. Certainly it is a huge power. It is a huge market for America. But it's not really just about that. We've seen countries lesser than us, lay down their dictates much better than Pakistan has ever been able to. So we have to agree to that.
I disagree with countries with a low economic base, with small GDP do not become foreign policy powers or regional powers. It's very important that we have, for the first time, we have this economic opportunity called CPEC, where Pakistan has simply defeated the Indian narrative that Pakistan is not an economically viable country unless it integrates with Indian economy. Now we have a huge opportunity to make this success and Pakistan become an economic tiger. That will increase Pakistan's foreign policy clout. Second, within region there are other voices particularly challenging the American foreign policy geostrategic interest. That is
right,
Afghanistan. No, let me finish, please. Afghanistan, you saw the Syrian example where the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Saudis simply disagree with many of the actions that American did it. On right. Afghanistan, now the Russia is very much involved. Iran is very much, believes that, without Iran, they cannot resolve the issue. China is very much interested in a peace in Afghanistan. So Americans do not have all the, shots in Afghanistan. They can play a spoiler's role, but they cannot make sure their respectful withdrawal unless they engage countries like Pakistan in the longer term. So they would continue to be here and bleed unless they have a, change of policy that they have pursued so far. So Pakistan has multi options. We are engaging the regional countries, from China to Russia, that give us a big clout in terms of influencing the regional developments, particularly in Afghanistan.
Right. What we
I just wanted to add it here that we should not be too much relying on the economic, because if the economics is the case, then Japan, Germany are economically both well, but they're dependent.
Right.
The first thing is that how we manage our foreign policy and
right.
how we can go for our strategic policy. It's very important.
In your opinion, what are the paramount policy changes that we need to make
I'm coming
right
on
now?
it. I just submit here that in 2014, Shams Saran, there was an ex-foreign secretary of India. He was a part of the negotiation in Indo-US nuclear deal and other things in 2005. At that time, Indians or the Americans were talking about that this deal will be giving them more economic opportunities. But the President Bush said, no, we are looking more than economics. That was political and strategic. Now, that is the important thing. Pakistan is strategically a very significant country, very powerful country, and same is in the case of India. Economics is important, but in the mercantile school of thoughts indicates us that if you are stable, if you have a sovereign defense, then of course you can manage, but both ways. But what is your point here is that, if I understood correctly, that what we can adopt, which kind of policy we have to adopt, first of all.
What changes?
So, we need a very clear changes. We need to engage not only one segment, not only one foreign office. Today, since I think 2-3 months, we have a foreign minister. Earlier we don't have. We need a very stable, formal, you can say long-term, short-term, both policies. In that, we have to engage all segments of society. I mean that in projecting our national interests, academics, journalists, different institutions of the government, we have to move as a nation, not as a political party or as an institution. Right. That is a very important. There is a need to develop a consensus within the society, within the state, that this is national interest, this is the way to pursue, and above all, we have to realize the changing we have to realize the trends in this transformation of the global politics. Today, it's immensely changing. The world has changed. And within that, if we still stick with the Americans or start looking for a goodies from the Americans, yes, America is an important country for us. It will remain an important country for us. We should engage. But thinking that everything will be coming from America, no. We have to look on the other, as John has very rightly pointed out, Russia, is engaging us, China is engaging us, we have a Central Asia. We have to go on this side. We should get rid of this Ummah concept and this Western notion or pro-American concept.
Right. Let me
just one sentence. I mean, we also need to balance. You know, the fact of the matter is that Pakistan, with the bagging ball, simply cannot be taken seriously. If you go to world capitals, and then you also brag about, you know, your narrative on certain issues. So we need to have a national power, and national power come from national, you know, from elements of power. You know, one is your respectable economic growth. That's very important. The other elements, including national cohesion, institutional harmony, and the rest of the issues.
Right, let me go on, Gilan sir. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and I want your comments particularly on the Kashmiri cause, considering the situation we've talked about, our regional situation with and our situation with America. Certainly, like you know, Jan Saab seems to believe that, you know, with considering our economics, we certainly cannot be expected to, you know, certainly match with India as far as economics, and that is a fact. We can't argue.
With due respect, I don't agree with this, because I think the economical prosperity is not the plausible, you know, argument for all the times, because we have seen previously, if you go a few decades back, Kashmir is not the recent issue. Kashmir is the issue there for when the creation of Pakistan was done.
Right.
So Pakistan used to be economically strong, more stronger than the countries which are now the developed countries.
Right.
So we could not get the world support at those times as well, and that indicates only our, you know, foreign policy failure. And I would leave here a question for all my Pakistani brothers, that we have to look within us and ponder over why the region that has opted Pakistan before the Pakistan was created is still under occupation.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab, thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us. Jan Saab, thank you for your time. Abdullah Gilani Saab. Right, it's very important to reflect on what was said today, particularly about the fact that, you know, it's important for us to move as a nation, not only about Kashmir, which remains at the heart of our conflict with India, but also vis-a-vis other countries like the US, like Afghanistan, and not only keeping, and you know, perhaps keeping politics aside. It's time that we view what can be done as a nation, and not you know, as keeping, not as a political, when we talk about politics, let's leave politics. Let's go as a cohesive force as a nation when we talk about Kashmir, when we talk about our defense, when we talk about our sacrifices vis-a-vis, you know, our relationship with the US. And yes, economic strength is important, but that's not the sole reality. It is perhaps time to be clear in our thinking, to dictate our own terms, because certainly we do have one benefit, which is our strategic importance to all of these countries, to the region, all of that. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.